close your eyes and open your mind. In the deep blue of the ocean lies a place forgotten by time and tides. Beneath the waves rests a city remembered only in whispers, Atlantis. Is it a legend, a dream, or a broken memory of an ancient truth? This question has captivated human imagination for thousands of years, stirring minds and awakening an endless curiosity. Pursuing this ancient mystery is not merely a quest for a lost city. It is also a journey to understand the universal cycle of humanity's rise and fall. The story of Atlantis enchanted the ancient world through the words of the great philosopher Plato in the 4th century BCE. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, the Athenian thinker spoke of a vast, advanced island kingdom located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar, in the middle of the ocean. According to Plato, Atlantis was not merely a geographical place, but also the heart of a moral and philosophical lesson, a mirror that reflected both the peak and the downfall of human nature. His dialogues hold a unique place among the ancient texts that carry the wisdom of ancient Greece into our age, and they are considered the main source of the Atlantis myth. These texts do more than tell a story. They invite readers to reflect on justice, virtue, power, and moral decay. Plato described the island as ruled by kings descended from the sea god, Poseidon, a land of extraordinary architecture and technological advancement. The city was built in concentric rings of land and sea, adorned with stones of different colors and enriched with orichalcum, a legendary metal thought to be an alloy of gold and copper. This circular structure was not only for defense, but also enhanced the city's aesthetic and mystical allure. The canals connected the island's interior to the ocean, allowing ships to sail straight into the city's heart. These feats of engineering suggest that the Atlanteans possessed knowledge far beyond their time. The waters nourished agriculture, and prosperity, while the complex harbors welcomed ships from across the world. Atlantis was like a utopia symbol of harmony between human genius and nature, a manifestation of a golden age and a perfect society. But this dream was not eternal. In Plato's account, the Atlanteans eventually became corrupted. They abandoned the divine virtues inherited from Poseidon and were consumed by a desire to dominate the world. Pride and greed crept into the heart of this magnificent civilization, eroding its purity and sense of justice. Plato emphasized how they strayed from their original wisdom, turning into a people obsessed with material wealth and power. And the gods, especially Zeus, king of the gods, did not forgive this moral decline. According to the legend, in a single terrible day and night, Atlantis was swallowed by the sea through violent earthquakes and floods. The ocean consumed it, hiding it forever in its depths. This sudden and catastrophic end adds a dramatic dimension to Plato's story and serves as a powerful warning about the misuse of power. Tonight, we follow the trail of this sunken paradise. As we dive into the legend of Atlantis, we seek not only a lost city, but also a deeper understanding of human nature, and the universal cycle of rise and fall. Perhaps within these ancient whispers, we might find a lesson for our modern world. The tale of Atlantis exists where science and mythology meet, where imagination merges with truth. Its mystery compels us not only to look back into the past, but also forward into the future and inward into our own potential. Come, let us descend into the depths of the ocean, calm your mind, and allow the ancient spirit of Atlantis to embrace you in this journey. We will not only chase a legend, but also rediscover humanity's eternal curiosity for the unknown, the desire to explore the worlds within ourselves. The golden age of Atlantis, depicted by Plato, Atlantis was not merely a vast island, but a unique fusion of human ingenuity and divine grace. This magnificent land was home to Poseidon's chosen kings and their descendants. The golden age presented in Plato's dialogues epitomized the pinnacle of reason, order, and prosperity. Their civilization possessed knowledge and technological prowess far surpassing that of contemporary societies. While the existence of Atlantis remains one of antiquity's greatest mysteries, its affluent lifestyle and forward-thinking philosophy have been central to numerous philosophical discussions, architectural marvels, and ingenious urban planning. Most striking feature was its unparalleled architectural design and ingenious urban planning. The city center consisted of concentric rings of land and water, ascending in tiers. These rings encircled the central hill, creating a symmetrical and aesthetic layout. The outer ring was broader than the inner ones and connected by wide canals, pews, and bridges. These artificial canals allowed Atlantean ships to reach the city's heart directly. This circular design was not only for defense, but also enhanced the city's visual harmony and functionality, testament to the Atlanteans' foresight. Material, wealth, and aesthetics. Plato specifically highlights the materials used in constructing Atlantis, notably orichalcum, a metal resembling gold and copper but considered more valuable and radiant, was extensively used. This lustrous metal adorned city walls, temples, and statues, reflecting sunlight to create a dazzling spectacle. Natural stones in red, black, and white hues added richness to the architecture, emphasizing the city's aesthetic appeal. Each ring was clad in differently colored stones, resembling a rainbow descending from the heavens, harmoniously blending the island's natural beauty with its architecture. Temple of Poseidon, the city's core. Atop the innermost hill stood a colossal temple dedicated to Poseidon, Atlantis's principal deity. The temple's exterior was sheathed in silver with golden pinnacles. Inside, it was lavishly decorated with ivory, gold, silver, and orichalcum. A massive golden statue of Poseidon, driving a chariot pulled by 6 winged horses, stood within, his head nearly touching the ceiling. This statue was not merely an artwork, but a profound symbol of the Atlanteans' reverence and faith. The temple served as both the religious and political nucleus of Atlantis, embodying the deep connection between the Atlanteans and their gods. Palace and royal residence adjacent to the temple was the opulent palace complex where the kings resided. These palaces featured expansive courtyards, lush gardens, therapeutic baths, and educational facilities. Every detail showcased the Atlanteans' luxurious and refined lifestyle. The palaces were not only royal residences, but also centers for diplomatic meetings, scientific discussions, and artistic events, reflecting the intellectual and cultural richness of Atlantean society. Social, structure, and justice-oriented, was governed by kings descended from Poseidon. The kingdom was divided into 10 regions, each ruled by a prince from Poseidon's lineage. These 10 kings convened regularly to establish laws, ensure justice, and make decisions for the island's overall welfare. This federal structure maintained each region's autonomy while preserving a central authority. Justice and laws initially. Atlanteans were wise and just individuals who respected laws and were conscious of their responsibilities to each other and the gods. Their governance system ensured fair representation for all societal segments, with decisions made through collective wisdom. They developed complex legal systems to uphold justice. Disputes were resolved by wise judges, and all citizens were equal before the law. Military power and defense. Atlantis also boasted a formidable army and navy. This power was used not only for defense, but also to expand the island's influence. Plato notes that the Atlanteans conquered many nations, establishing an empire extending beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This military discipline safeguarded their cities and trade routes. But over time, the desire for conquest led to the corruption of this power. Social classes and harmony. The society comprised various social classes, including the royal family, nobles, soldiers, artisans, farmers, buying, and merchants. Each class had specific roles and responsibilities, contributing to a complex and functional societal structure. Initially, there was great harmony among these classes. Everyone fulfilled their duties, contributing to the society's overall prosperity, economy, science, and daily life. Atlantis's economy was supported by both agriculture and trade. The island had fertile lands, producing a variety of fruits, vegetables, and grains. Advanced irrigation systems ensured high agricultural productivity, eliminating food shortages. Advanced trade network due to their strategic location in the ocean. Atlanteans engaged in extensive trade with the world. Metals, precious stones, exotic spices, food, and other goods were transported using advanced ships, enriching the island. Ports were bustling at all hours, serving as meeting points for merchants from diverse cultures. Technological advancement. While Plato doesn't delve deeply into their technological capabilities, it's evident that Atlanteans excelled in construction, engineering, and possibly hydraulics. Their achievements in water management, canals, dams, thermal baths, and mining orichalcum and other metals are particularly noteworthy. Some theories suggest they harnessed advanced energy sources like crystal energy, though this isn't mentioned. In Plato's original texts, philosophy and art Atlantis stood out not only for its material wealth, but also for its intellectual and artistic accomplishments. Plato emphasizes that Atlanteans initially pursued wisdom and virtue, indicating their appreciation for philosophical thought and artistic expression. Dance, music, sculpture, painting, and literature were likely integral to daily life. Artistic works reflected their beliefs, lifestyles, and relationship with nature. Health and well-built islands, fertile lands, abundant natural resources, and advanced lifestyle provided Atlanteans with a high standard of living. Baths, sports facilities, and expansive parks supported public health and entertainment. The city offered all necessities for a healthy life: clean water, fresh food, and a peaceful environment. This golden age reinforced the notion that Atlantis was not merely a myth, but a symbol of the perfection and potential humanity could achieve. However, in Plato's narrative, this glorious era had an end. Corruption and ambition would seal the fate of this utopian paradise, leading it to the ocean's depths. The fall of Atlantis. From divine splendor to moral collapse, the glory of Atlantis was not merely a product of Plato's imagination, but also an ancient warning one that revealed the fragility of human nature and the corrupting influence. Power. Plato emphasizes how long the Atlanteans preserved the virtues inherited from their divine ancestry. For a time, they maintained the strength of their divine nature, for their greatest desire was to live virtuously and in harmony with one another. In this era, their immense wealth and power did not corrupt them. Rather, it elevated them further, urging them to live in accordance with divine laws. Justice, wisdom, and humility were the cornerstones of their society. Their cities gleamed, not only with material riches, but also with moral and spiritual depth. The beginning of corruption, the shadows of human nature over time. However, the darker aspects of human nature began to surface. As Plato writes, when the divine element in them began to fade and the mortal part became predominant, the Atlanteans began to change. Their prosperity and advancement gave rise to a dangerous sense of invulnerability. The very power and wealth they once used to foster harmony were now tools in pursuit of more power, more riches, balance gave way to ambition. From virtue to greed, the Atlanteans, who had once lived modestly, became increasingly selfish, ambitious, and greedy. Spiritual ideals were abandoned in favor of material desires. Plato notes how they began to value, by the brilliance of gold, magnificent palaces, and a life of luxury more than virtue. Wealth, rather than satisfying them, became an unquenchable hunger. Corruption, bribery, and the pursuit of unjust gain spread across the land. Justice gave way to personal interest, imperial ambitions, and rising aggression. The order and justice within the island transformed into an expansionist drive beyond its shores. Plato tells us that the Atlanteans became a formidable power, seeking to dominate large parts of Europe and Asia. Their attempts to extend their control over the Mediterranean posed a grave threat, especially to smaller, more virtuous Greek city-states. This imperialism was the external symptom of their internal moral collapse. They no longer sought prosperity within their own borders, but coveted the lands and resources of others. Hubris and the severing of divine ties in time. The Atlanteans forgot their divine origins and began to see themselves as greater than the gods. Their hubris led them away from faith and reverence. No longer did they concern themselves with justice or virtue. Their only focus was on self-interest and global dominion. Offerings to the gods dwindled, replaced by grand celebrations that glorified their own power. This spiritual emptiness accelerated their fall, for in violating divine laws, they had invited inevitable punishment. Zeus's judgment, divine intervention, and the beginning of catastrophizing. Decline of Atlantis did not escape the notice of the gods. Zeus, the king of gods, observed their moral decay. Plato recounts when Zeus, the god of gods, saw the wickedness of this once noble race, he could endure no more. He convened a council of the gods. There, it was decided, the Atlanteans would be punished. This was a manifestation of divine justice. When strength and wealth are divorced from virtue, destruction becomes inevitable. The gods wished to remind humanity that the gifts they receive must be used with humility and wisdom. Nature awakens. The first signs the wrath of the gods manifested through the power of nature itself. Plato describes how this began with a series of violent earthquakes and floods. The earth trembled, cities were shaken, the ocean surged, and began to engulf the land. These events were warnings. Nature was a force far beyond their control. The first tremors caused damage in the outer regions of the city and stirred unease among the people. But in their arrogance, the Atlanteans ignored the signs. Rising violence and warnings of ruiners, the earthquakes grew in frequency and power. Even the most resilient structures of the city began to crack. Harbors and canals were threatened by strange tides and rising waters. The skies themselves may have turned unusual storms, and lightning bolts became visible signs of the gods' fury. These events signaled the beginning of an unstoppable chain of natural destruction, a challenge to the very technology and strength the Atlanteans had so long relied on. the powerlessness of humanity despite all their technological and military power. The Atlanteans were helpless in the face of these natural catastrophes. Their overconfidence had left them utterly unprepared. Fear and panic began to spread across the once organized city, but it was too late. The judgment had been passed. The end of Atlantis was inevitable. A moral collapse, not just a geographic one. The fall of Atlantis was not merely a natural disaster, was the result of a deep moral collapse and a reflection of divine justice. Though Plato may have used the story to highlight the virtue and justice of the Athenians, the tragic fate of Atlantis remains a universal lesson for all humankind. It reminds us that power and progress alone are not enough to sustain a civilization. Without virtue and ethics as guiding principles, even the greatest empires can fall. This is the lasting legacy of Atlantis. We have examined the magnificent rise of Atlantis, the subsequent moral corruption, and the wrath of the gods. Now, let us focus on the ultimate fate of that glorious city, its submersion beneath the waves. This part contains the most dramatic, tell, and tragic moments of the legend, describing how an entire civilization could vanish in a single day and night. As depicted in Plato's dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the fall of Atlantis was not only the end of a civilization, but also a striking demonstration of nature's destructive power and divine justice. When the gods' patience ran out, Atlantis's magnificent destiny was sealed by disaster. The climax of the catastrophe, the end of everything once. The gods decided to punish Atlantis. The forces of nature manifested in their most violent forms. Centuries of stability were shattered by a sudden and unprecedented catastrophe. The earth groaned with a deep, ominous rumble that shook Atlantis to its foundations. This was no ordinary earthquake, was the earthly reflection of divine wrath. Buildings swayed violently, expertly carved stones were dislodged, columns toppled, and the city's grand structures cracked and crumbled. Every moment heralded the release of the divine fury that had been building beneath the surface. The rising ocean, giant tsunamis and floods following the earthquakes. The ocean itself rose like a beast awakened. The sea level surged abruptly, and colossal waves began to swallow the shores. Advancing inward from the city's outer rings, once fertile canals and harbors became death traps filled with uncontrollable waters. Atlantis's complex water management systems were powerless against this unparalleled flood. The raging waters swept everything in their path. The sea did not come merely as a flood, but as a tsunami of overwhelming force that engulfed even the tallest buildings, obliterating the Atlanteans' defensive lines. volcanic eruptions and darkened skies. Speculative extension, although Plato does not explicitly mention volcanic activity. Such disasters are often linked to this type of catastrophe. If the island was situated in a volcanic region, lava flows following the quakes could have scorched the city and blanketed the sky with smoke and ash. Volcanic eruptions would have poisoned the air with toxic gases, suffocating survivors, while the city's brilliant architecture glowed eerily in the red light of the flames as day turned into night. Ashfall would have coated everything in a grey, lifeless layer, turning once lively streets into graveyards. Chaos, panic, and helplessness faced with this sudden and multifaceted disaster. There was no escape for the Atlanteans. Order in the city collapsed instantly, giving way to panic and chaos. The members of a once perfect civilization became desperate individuals, driven by survival instincts. Crowds fled through the crumbling streets as temples and palaces, once resplendent with glory, toppled upon them. Screams and howls mingled with the sounds of destruction. Children were separated from their families. Spouses lost one another. Horror and despair reigned everywhere. The wealth and powerful armies that Atlantis once proudly possessed meant nothing against this. Natural calamity, devoured by the sea. Destruction in a single night, Plato's phrase, in a single terrible day and night, emphasizes how swift and merciless Atlantis's fate was. The glorious city still stood when the sun set, but by the dawn it had been swallowed by the depths, prayer of the ocean. This was the instantaneous annihilation of an entire civilization. Drawn into the depths, the island's fragmentation, due to the fractures caused by earthquakes and the violence of the waters. The island of Atlantis began to break apart. Large land masses were dragged beneath the sea, and with the city, a civilization that had lasted thousands of years disappeared from sight. This was not merely a flood, but a geological catastrophe, where the island was completely consumed by the sea. Massive chunks of land sank along deep fissures to the ocean floor, leaving behind only turbulent waters and memories of destruction. What remained unenduring traces Plato notes that after Atlantis sank, it left behind impassable mud and slime. This phrase suggests that the city did not vanish without a trace, but that its submerged ruins and the ocean itself made the region dangerous and inaccessible. These mudbanks have fueled modern speculation about the legend's possible reality. The ocean covered this massive wreckage with its own veil, preserving it for centuries, perhaps millennia, if guarding a secret forever. Memories left behind, whispers passed down through generations. Though Atlantis physically vanished, its story and legacy continue to live on in humanity's collective consciousness. As Plato recorded, this tale was passed down through generations and was likely embellished or altered many times before reaching Timaeus and Critias. Each retelling carried a piece of the grandeur and tragic end of this unique civilization. These whispers, like echoes rising from the ocean depths, keep humanity's curiosity about the unknown alive. The submersion of Atlantis symbolizes humanity's fragility in the face of nature and the destruction that moral corruption can bring. This tragic end whispers to us that power and wealth are not absolute, and true prosperity is only lasting when combined with virtue and wisdom. In the depths of the ocean, the spirit of Atlantis still echoes an ancient warning and eternal mystery. Its sinking was not only the end of an island, but also the demise of a way of life and a philosophy. After Atlantis sank beneath the waters, the city's physical existence vanished, but its legend never died. Plato's accounts were passed down through the centuries, captivating the minds of thinkers, explorers, adventurers, and dreamers alike. Atlantis became not just a lost city, but a symbol of humanity's endless curiosity about the unknown and its desire for discovery. This story, lost in the depths of time, was revived in every generation, bringing new questions and new quests. The rebirth of the legend and endless searches from antiquity through the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance. The Atlantis legend was reinterpreted in many cultures and regions. With the Renaissance came renewed interest, fueled by growing exploration and scientific curiosity. Maps were drawn, new continents discovered, and ancient texts re-examined. As modern science and archaeology developed, more systematic searches began to determine whether the legendary island actually existed. Scientific methods and new technologies raised hopes of turning Atlantis from myth into a potential archaeological discovery. 19th century speculations and the Golden Age theories. In the 19th century, writers like Ignatius Donnelly brought Atlantis to the height of popular interest. Donnelly's book, Atlantis, The Antediluvian World, proposed that Atlantis was the cradle of all ancient civilizations. According to him, advanced knowledge in Egypt, the Maya civilization, and others was brought by survivors from Atlantis. During this period, countless theories about Atlantis's location emerged from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, the Azores to Antarctica. Every new geographic or archaeological discovery inspired fresh theories among Atlantis enthusiasts. Scientific approaches and skepticism, myth or reality. In the 20th century and beyond, the scientific community approached the Atlantis legend with more critical scrutiny. Many archaeologists, historians, and geologists argued that Plato's work was a literary and philosophical allegory, not a record of historical fact. According to this view, Plato used the story to support his own philosophical arguments. portraying Atlantis as an ideal society and a representation of its moral decay. The texts were seen less as historical records and more as didactic tools. Volcanic eruptions and geographical theories, the impact of Santorini, of the most popular scientific theories linking Atlantis's catastrophe is the eruption of the Terra Santorini volcano around 1600 BCE. This massive explosion in the Aegean Sea caused tsunamis that devastated the Minoan civilization and destroyed much of the island. Some researchers suggest that this event could be the source of the legends passed down to Plato. The severity and consequences of the eruption strikingly resemble Plato's account of Atlantis's sudden destruction, earthquakes, tsunamis, island disappearance. However, Plato's timeline, about 9,000 years before his time, and the geographical location beyond the Pillars of Hercules do not perfectly match this theory, leaving debates open. The Bimini Road and other anomalies. Modern discoveries, formations like the Bimini Road in the Caribbean, have been interpreted by some as evidence of Atlantis. This formation consists of regularly shaped stone blocks extending beneath the water. Similarly, unusual geological structures or suspicious underwater ruins found on ocean floors or coastal areas have sometimes been presented by Atlantis theorists. As proof, however, scientists generally explain these formations as natural geological processes or remnants of ancient harbors. Still, such discoveries keep interest in the legend alive and fuel the quest for the unknown. Atlantis's influence, bend legacy today. Philosophical and popular Atlantis has transcended the status of a mere archaeological pursuit. It has secured a firm place in modern culture and popular art, becoming part of humanity's shared imagination. In popular culture, from novels to films, video games to comics, Atlantis appears as a symbol of lost civilizations, advanced technology, mysterious powers, and utopian societies. From Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, to Disney's animated films and the comic book kingdom of Aquaman, the image of Atlantis is constantly reinterpreted. These works often borrow Plato's core motifs while adding their own twists, portraying Atlantis as both a warning of disaster and a representation of humanity's longing for an ideal future. In spiritual and New Age movements, some New Age beliefs and mystical currents see Atlantis as the source of spiritual wisdom and ascension. These views focus on Atlanteans' psychic powers, crystal technologies, and transmission of universal knowledge. These approaches are less about scientific evidence and more about personal growth and spiritual quest. Atlantis is often regarded as a model for humanity's next evolutionary stage, with ancient wisdom waiting to be rediscovered. Philosophical and universal warning. Perhaps Atlantis's most enduring legacy is Plato's original messenger, warning against falling into the traps of pride and greed. Atlantis is a powerful allegory, reminding us that power and advancement alone do not bring happiness or permanence. Virtue, justice, and humility must always be fundamental values. This sunken city offers a mirror that remains relevant today. In the face of environmental crises, technological ethics dilemmas, and social injustices, its story urges us to recognize our limits, respect nature, and strive for the common good of humanity. Atlantis continues to live not as a concrete archaeological discovery, but as a story resonating deep within the collective unconscious, even without definitive proof of its existence. It remains a legendary legacy shaping human imagination, the spirit of exploration and reflections on our destiny. In the ocean's depths, Atlantis endures not only through its story, but also through the inspiration and lessons it imparts in modern life. The story of Atlantis continues to resonate in humanity's collective consciousness, like a whisper rising from the depths of the ocean. It is not merely the tale of a lost island or a sunken city. It is a universal allegory about human nature, the relationship with power, and the importance of moral values. This ancient legend, passed down by Plato, contains profound lessons that remain relevant thousands of years later, warning, a source of inspiration, and an endless subject of curiosity for humanity. The magnificent rise of Atlantis shows how far human intelligence and engineering can push boundaries. Temples adorned with orichalcum, ingenious water channels, and a life full of prosperity reveal humanity's potential. These tremendous achievements demonstrate what can be accomplished with the right motivations and a harmonious social structure. However, Plato's most crucial warning lies in the fact that this peak is not permanent. The Atlanteans' corruption through pride, greed, and ambition for power prepared their inevitable downfall. This reminds us how even the greatest achievements, if lacking moral values, can initiate spiritual and social decay, eventually leading to destruction. It highlights how material wealth and technological progress without spiritual and ethical foundations are ultimately empty and fragile. The helplessness of humans in the face of nature's power is another key theme of the Atlantis myth. Atlantis tell you how it was swallowed by the sea in a single day due to violent earthquakes and massive tsunamis, dramatically demonstrating what can happen when nature's balance is disrupted. This is also thought-provoking in the context of the challenges our modern world faces, such as climate change, environmental destruction, and natural disasters. Atlantis serves as an ancient ecological lesson, emphasizing the importance of living in harmony with nature, using resources sustainably, and showing humility toward our planet. It reminds us how claims of human dominance over nature are ultimately insignificant before nature's own laws. Atlantis may be a place never to be found, or scientifically proven, yet its legend continues to fuel our quests, our curiosity about the unknown, and our desire to unlock secrets buried deep in history. It is not just a myth, but a testament to the boundless nature of human imagination and capacity for learning. Interpreted in different ways across cultures and ages, it remains a living story. Whether one believes in its existence is a personal choice. However, the lessons it teaches are universal and undeniable. The story of this sunken paradise whispers to us, true wealth lies not in gold or power, but in wisdom, justice, and virtue. Only civilizations built on these values can withstand the destructive forces of time and leave a lasting legacy. While Atlantis's tragic end lights a warning from the past, it also urges humanity to continually question itself and pursue growth, not only materially, but also spiritually and morally. As we build our own Atlantis, we must listen to these ancient whispers of history to avoid sharing its fate.